Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and myself, Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about us at our website, horrormakesushappy.com. Before we get started, a few trigger warnings for you and the listeners. We are going to be discussing things regarding horror movies, which could involve anything from murder, rape, suicide, child abuse. There will likely be F-bombs, S-bombs, T-bombs, P-bombs, and all kinds of other bombs. So if you are not prepared for that, please take care of yourself. But if you are, come on and join us for all the F-bombs and other bombs and whatnot. Yeah.
No H-bombs.
No H-bombs. They don't use those anymore.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. All right, so today's guest is Shian Denovan, actress best known for such works as Cat's Egg Blues, one of my favorites, as well as Sawney Flesh of a Man, and Bite is another suggestion that IMDb has up here, but I'm more interested in checking out Hazel. That looks just horrifying and awesome.
In a good way.
In a good way. So, thank you for joining us, Shian. Anything that you're currently working on that you'd like to mention before we get started?
So obviously things have been crazy at the moment with COVID and everything. I had 2 features lined up that I was meant to be shooting this year, kind of acting in, which have both been postponed till next year, hopefully. But at the moment, I've actually just launched my own film production company, Affecting Films. So I just got the kind of official certificate through from the government for that the other day. So I officially now have my own limited company. And so that's exciting. And so, we're shooting our first film starting next week, actually, which is a horror.
Awesome.
I almost want to ask questions, but we could. By the way, so we'll talk to you offline and get information to put together a bio, and we can link to whatever you want to link to. So if you set up some sort of little teaser page about what you're shooting, we can link to that and all kinds of stuff.
Cool.
All right. So in this interview, we're going to be asking 3 sets of questions covering childhood, adolescence, and then adulthood to find out what it is about horror that you like, what may have influenced you at an early age, or just certain influences throughout your life. The idea is that if we ask these questions in certain phases like that, we can, find out some interesting and common themes, but also maybe find out some unexpected ones, which is always a fun surprise.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be coming at the questions from multiple different angles, which sometimes triggers memories. Like, we'll discuss things in childhood, then adolescence, words, and adulthood, which is a fun process. But that being said, it isn't meant to be any kind of therapy session. So if at any time we ask a question that you're not comfortable answering, you can just say pass and we'll move past it.
Okay, cool. I was just about to say, it sounds like it's going to be a therapy session.
it's a little both, but it's still fun. We keep it fun.
Cool.
All right, so starting off with childhood, any fun memories or films, literature, anything that you can think of that either scared you when you were a kid or inspired you as far as your interest in horror?
Yeah, do you know, the first horror film I remember seeing, and it's also one of the things that scared me most in my life because I was way too young. I can't remember what age I was, but I was still sleeping on my mum's bed, so I must have been pretty young. I mean, I think I did sleep in my mum's bed until a bit older than most, but it was obviously well before I would have started school, so I definitely would have been under 5.
Wow.
And my mum had already fallen asleep, and we just had this little black and white television, so it was just this little black and white TV, and it was up in my mum's room. Yeah, and my mum fell asleep, and I guess I was this little kid, and I couldn't sleep or something, so I put the TV on, and it was this horror film, and to this day I don't know what it was, but it was some probably pretty kind of trashy, but I do remember it was all these and I ended up watching the whole film, and I don't know what age it was, maybe 3 or 4 or something, and it was these teenagers and their parents had gone away, and they play a record backwards, and it summons some demons or the devil, and then and I remember there was some scene with this hand reaching up from the bed and pulling one of the characters under the bed and all this sort of stuff. And I was absolutely terrified. And I was in bed and I wanted to turn it off because I was too scared, but I was too scared to get out of my bed in case when I put my foot down, this hand grabbed and pulled me under. And my mum was fast asleep. So I ended up just having to watch the whole film. And I think that kind of gave me nightmares for a long time afterwards.
The record being played backwards. Was it in the 80s? Because I think I've got this one.
Oh, you think? Oh, wow, this would be crazy. I could rewatch it again as an adult and see what it's like. Yeah, it would have been in the 80s. Well, I was born in 85, and as I say, this was when I was a few years old. So yeah.
So actually almost by 90 by then.
So
between 85 and 90.
It might have been an old film though. It could have already been out for a few years. Yeah.
True.
If it was on television. So yeah.
Were there a series of small demon-looking critters that were running around in possibly a stop animation style?
That I cannot remember. I mean, as I say, that like I was so young, the memory's a little bit. There's just a few points I remember clearly.
Okay, talking about The Gate. It's a great classic 80s film. It's actually got Stephen Dorff in it when he was very little.
Cool. Well, I am definitely going to watch that film, and I think if it's the same one, I think I will know. And yeah, who knows? You might have just brought back some of my childhood trauma. So thanks for that. Yeah.
Good job, Chris. When you said that there was the thing try to grab from under the bed, I'm guessing that was from the side of the bed, from the foot of the bed. Do you remember?
Yeah, from the side of the bed. From the side of the bed.
Because the reason I ask is because, my memory when you're talking about something like that was from Freddy Krueger, reaching through the bed. I think it was. Is that
yes.
the scene, Chris?
Yeah. I used to watch the Freddy Krueger films as well, but I quite enjoyed them. I think I was just that little bit older, so I was still get scared, but I wasn't like pure trauma like that first one was when I was only 3 or 4.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember as well when I was a little kid, and we went to this theme park in Spain with my family and some of my friends, and we went there. They had this like haunted house thing, and I remember one of the parks you're walking through, and there was all these pictures. There was all film themed, and there was all these pictures of like Freddy Krueger on the wall, but they were all like silhouettes with light shining from behind. But then one of them wasn't a picture, and it moved, and suddenly his his knife fingers come through and rip the picture open, and he jumps out and chases us. Yeah.
Nice. Any other memories from early childhood?
I remember watching Candyman and being really distressed by the part with the baby in the bonfire, if you remember that part, and getting kind of quite freaked out. And then one of my friends, who was around the same age as me, but a bit tougher maybe, she was like, "Oh, calm down, they're not going to kill the baby, relax." And then and me trying to, yeah, I know, I'm fine.
Well, it's always good to have friends with you when we watch scary movies. It's good and bad. It heightens the experience when you watch a horror movie alone, because obviously it's scarier when you're alone. But it does always make it more fun when you have a friend to look over to at that one scene where you're like, "Oh my God, wasn't that crazy?"
Mm-hmm, for sure. There can be good points of both, and I like to do both. I remember once when I was in the flat by myself, and I was watching Paranormal Activity with all the lights off, and my housemate came home and saw what I was doing. He's like, "Oh," he's like quite scared of horror films. He's like, "Oh my God, are you fucking crazy? What are you doing? Are you stop watching this film by yourself?" And I was like, "Well, it makes it more effective, Yeah. Another childhood memory I remember this is when I was quite young, and me and my friend decided to watch The Exorcist together, and we'd heard that it was like the scariest film ever. And I fell asleep. I think it was like I think it was like quite late. It was like little kids like sleepover, staying up past bedtime, secretly putting it on. But she was terrified, and so she was shitting herself and kept trying to wake me up, like, "Oh my God, Shian, please don't leave me alone with this film." And I'm like, it's fine, it's just a film. Let me sleep.
Trying to remember, was it Jeremiah Rosario that had something like that happen when he was a kid? I can't remember what movie it was. Actually, it might have been Candyman.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Candyman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had gone over to a friend's house, and they put on Candyman, and everybody else fell asleep, and he stayed up watching it by himself.
Yeah, he was in the opposite situation.
Yeah.
You may have virtually met him. He's the one who did the Cat Sick Blues fan film, Cat Sick Blues, Sick Blues.
Yes, I know who he is. I've not actually met him, but I've seen his film. I've seen his fan film, and I've seen some of his kind of happenings online and stuff. Yeah,
great work.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually the one that suggested we talk to you.
Ah, yes. Lovely, very nice. Oh well, thank you to him then.
Anything else? So we've got what would you say that was, Chris? Maybe The Gate.
It sounds like The Gate. Yeah, they played a record backwards, and there were some little demon critters, stop animation. I don't know if there was a hand that came out from under the bed, but I'm going to go with Gate.
Cool.
Final
well, I'm definitely going to be watching The Gate, and we'll see.
It is a classic.
We'll see
So
if Buck brings back these memories.
That, Candyman, Exorcist, any others?
Oh, like horror films I watched when I was a kid. Yeah, I'm sure there would have been, but I'm sure I would have watched other ones as well. But I can't think.
It doesn't have to be movies either. It could be, stories that you read or TV shows or books.
I used to love reading the Point horror books when I was a kid. I don't know if you guys know them. So like the Point, they churned out loads of novels, and they had different things. They had like Point romance, and then they were all like these romance stories, and they had Point horror. So I remember I used to love Point horror books when I was a kid, and used to devour them.
Not familiar with that series, but I think I know in general the concept of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that haunted house experience as well, which also in that same place, that same haunted house, the one where you got chased by Freddy Krueger, they also, because I say each section was like a different film, and I remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre section as well. And with that one, they had this guy, and like it must have like just been a chainsaw but without the blade on it or something, because it's obviously an actor, but like it still was like a real chainsaw, so it's making the noise, and he was properly like swiping it so close to us. And I remember like me and my friends I was with, we were at the back of the kind of queue people that were going through this house. You kind of all go through in a group together, and we were trying to run away from this guy behind us with the chainsaw so much that we like bumped into everyone and made the whole queue of people fall down like dominoes.
Sounds like they achieved their goal there. I think that's probably what they went for.
For sure.
We have a similar thing here. It's one of our theme parks. There's Universal. What was it?
Universal Studios.
Yeah, Halloween Horror Nights. There you go. They used to do something similar where they would have people with chainsaws with no actual chain on them, but they are still a real chainsaw. So you hear it, you smell the gas. And,
yeah.
But I think they've since canceled that because of liability reasons or something.
Oh really?
Oh, well, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, no more fun.
That makes me feel more hardcore for going through it when I was like 8 or something.
Right.
So at the time, were you enjoying it, or was it just pure terror, fear?
I was enjoying it for sure. I've always liked scary stuff, and I've always enjoyed it. Apart from The Gate, if it was The Gate, apart from that first experience when I was only like 3 or 4, which was too much, and like that was nasty. But everything else since then, even if I get scared, I do enjoy it. Going back to childhood and thinking of other things, I've always had a fascination with horror and paranormal, that sort of stuff. I actually used to when I was a kid. So I was brought up on this farm. And when I was a little kid, we used to tell these stories that the barns, there were these barns, old kind of barns up on the hill. We used to kind of tell stories that they were haunted, and we used to dare egg each other on to kind of go up to them at night when it was dark. And we'd always, everyone would always get scared before we got there and all run back down the hill screaming. And I remember one time I picked up the courage and I did carry on, and everyone else ran back screaming, and I was kind of the only one that went up and went into the barns by myself. And then I managed to convince myself that I had seen or heard a ghost, and I don't think I actually did see or hear anything, but I wanted to so much. I wanted to so much that I made myself believe that I had. And I used to collect skulls when I was a kid as well, actually. So again, because I was brought up in the countryside on a farm, sometimes animals will die and they just kind of get left. And so there would sometimes be sheep skulls and animal skulls you'd find when you're out and about. And I used to collect them. And I remember once I used to keep them kind of on top of a cupboard in my bedroom, and once one of them fell off, and so I was convinced that was a sign that our house was haunted as well, because there was ghosts throwing. I was and my mum telling me it probably just near the edge and slipped. I was like, Mum, but of all the things in my room, it was the skull that fell. That's definitely a sign of ghosts.
Of everything that could have fallen over. No, yes. That was a ghost.
Yes, definitely.
Also, so you and Chris have some.
Go ahead, Steve. I think you were now.
I was just going to say you and Chris have some stuff in common.
I have quite a few skulls.
Ah, good. Glad to hear it.
Not all of them human.
Okay.
Oh, I don't have any human skulls. Those are expensive.
Well, not if you source them yourself.
This is true. Wasn't going to go there, but props to you for doing so.
So you said you wanted to see a ghost. Do you have any idea why?
Gosh, I don't know. I guess I just, do you know what? I think I probably do know why. I've always, I guess, liked the idea of magic or other worlds. And I guess that just ties in with that. I guess I've always wanted the idea of there being more than what we see, and being someone that would be able to like access that somehow, would be able to, I used to love fantasy books when I was a kid as well, and ideas about, people kind of finding some magic amulet that takes them to some other land or something. And even nowadays I'm super into sci-fi. That's like one of my favorite genres now. So I think the kind of desire to want to see ghosts and things was just another desire to kind of want to see something more than the norm, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Were you into sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that makes total sense. It's if I may borrow a quote from Fox Mulder from The X-Files, you want to believe.
Yes.
Were you into mythology at all?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The reason I ask is because I know, for example, I don't know about Scottish, but I know Irish, there's a lot of mythology related to spirits and things like that. So I thought maybe, no?
Well, I don't know about mythology. I mean, there's definitely, I guess you could cross when you talk about spirits and things. I mean, I used to want to believe in fairies when I was a kid as well. And, I think there's quite a lot of kind of stories about kind of fairies in Scotland and the fairy people and fairylands and stuff. So I guess that's kind of touching on that. And yeah, as I told you guys earlier, my name is the Gaelic word for fairies. So yeah.
And I guess you could also, how can I say this? The word mythology, to some people, the word means different things. To you, maybe you just consider them stories, but not necessarily mythology.
For sure, so. Yeah. I guess when you say the word mythology, I guess I start thinking of like Greek mythology and stuff like that. Just because those kind of words, I guess, are often put together. But
right,
yeah.
So you're interested in magic, other worlds. The idea of there being something more.
I certainly was. Yeah, certainly was when I was a kid. Yeah.
I know that we have talked to a couple different people from that area of the world, and depending on what time things were going on, was Halloween becoming a thing over there for you where you were living when you were growing up?
Oh, Halloween's always been a thing, and Halloween's a big thing in Scotland. It's more so than it is in England. And I mean, you guys out there got it from us. It's Halloween originated in Scotland. That's where it started.
I was just going to say, well, when we talked to not Simon, Nicholas, Vince Berman, yes. He was the one that brought up the the difference between the Irish, Scottish Halloween, and then obviously what it developed into in the U.S. versus the English Halloween. Where was it? How can I say this? Obviously, what we have here in the U.S. has become much more commercialized.
Yeah.
What was it like when you were growing up?
Pumpkins. Sorry, we used to have turnips instead of pumpkins, which is a lot harder work because they're rock solid.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we used to, because as I say, I lived with my mum. We had this little cottage on a farm, and so we would just like kind of steal them from the sheep field. The farmers would put them out for the sheep to eat. So we just go and like nick a turnip from the sheep's field and then carve that, which would really, you'd have to put your muscles into it. And we would do ducking for apples. So you'd have apples in a bowl and you got to kind of put your face in the water and try and get one out. And then we would go guising. So where we'd go, which you guys call trick-or-treating, right? So in Scotland we call it guising. Okay. Yeah, you kind of go around knocking door to door. Do a little. We would do it. So we do you do a little performance or something, like do a little performance or do a little poem or something like that, and then get some treats.
Well, that is much more admirable. Here in the States, we just yell trick or treat and give me the candy. You actually put on a performance and earn your candy.
Right.
I think nowadays that's what kids do. I think nowadays it's just give me something. But when I was a little kid, you were meant to do a little turn.
Were costumes involved, or was it performance without costumes, or both?
Costumes for sure. Yeah, costumes.
Did you have a favorite costume?
Oh gosh, and to be honest, I don't think I had any particularly exciting costumes, and probably just like witches and cats and stuff like that. I do remember when I was like 12, and it was my final year in primary school, just before I started high school. And I was getting to that age where I was starting to, nearly going into my teens and starting to feel like I was grown up. And we were like, oh, we're almost too old to still go guising, but let's do it because this will be the last year we want to do it. So me and my friends went. But we were kind of also trying to be a bit cool. So we decided to go. I don't know what these costumes were meant to be, but we just went in like ripped jeans and fake cigarettes. We got these like fake cigarettes from the joke shop where you like blow into them rather than suck, and we puff up. It's like how it makes it look like they're smoking. And so yeah, we just went around guising, wearing like ripped jeans and pretending to smoke. I'm not quite sure what we were meant to be, but I think we're just we thought we looked cool. Yeah, just dressing up as older kids. Yeah.
You were the rowdy teenagers that you weren't actually yet.
Yes, exactly. Which, I mean, that kind of it's kind of I was going to say kind of say something about my like sheltered Scottish countryside upbringing. I'm sure, like in the city like London, which is where I live now, the 12-year-olds would have actually probably just been out in the street smoking. But
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That kind of leads into my next question. I was going to ask, did you have a favorite performance? I guess that might be the same one.
A favorite performance, or like when I was guising at Halloween?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I don't really remember. To be honest, like that kind of tradition was like dying out as I was a kid. So I think we only did performances really when I was little. And then by the time I was kind of getting a bit older, the kids were not doing it anymore. It was kind of a dying tradition.
Okay.
I remember we used to sing like Halloween songs and stuff around that time of year in my school, though. Like I still remember some of them.
Now I'm curious what they are.
Are you trying to make me sing on your podcast?
Only if you want to.
I'm a lady of many talents, but singing is not generally one. Although the song is all about Halloween coming, and Halloween is nearly coming, so I'm kind of tempted to give you a look. But like, if I start, I might not stop, and then you'll regret it because it's not going to be pleasant.
Maybe you can do that to take us out of the show.
Yeah. There you go. Okay.
How about a least favorite costume?
I don't know. I don't really remember any least favorite costumes, to be honest.
Okay. Was it? How can I say this? Was there any particular pleasure in the act of dressing up or going guising, or was it just kind of like a so-so
thing you do?
No, it was definitely pleasurable. It was really good fun. It was a great night of the year. I used to really enjoy it. Many years later, when one of my friends that still lived in the little kind of village around where I was from, when she had a kid, and I remember like being really excited, oh, let's take him guising. And at this point, he was so little, he didn't really know what was going on. But because like all her friends,
just wanted to go.
Yeah, but it wasn't just me. All of us wanted an excuse to go guising again. So we went when there was like 4 or 5 adults, all dressed up in full costume, and then one little 2-year-old that had no idea what was going on.
Excellent. Yes, we're all guising, and this is our excuse.
Exactly. Yeah. So we literally just went around door to door again as grown women with this little 2-year-old as our excuse, all in full costume.
I'm trying to think. How can I word this? I'm trying to think if there's something in particular about that you enjoyed. Was it part of the dressing up? Was it the make believe maybe? Candy.
Could be
any of the reasons.
I think just like a bit of everything. I think the excitement. I think just the feel of the evening. It has this like magical, otherworldly feel, and it's the same like. Is this, I guess, the same? I mean, this is going off the horror subject, but I love Christmas as well. And it's the same thing. People always ask me, "Oh, what do you love about Christmas so much?" And I'm like, "Oh, just the magic." And they're like, "What do you mean?" And it's just a feeling, I guess. And I think it was just the same with Halloween. It's just, I guess, this feeling of magic, or that you're, something is a bit different than the norm. And I guess going back to what I was talking about when I was younger, about this, like always having this kind of longing or this desire to want to discover other worlds and stuff. So I guess when you have those kind of festivities, that's almost touching on that. That's about as close as we can get in the real life to kind of going into another world almost.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's kind of an escapism in a way. Like other holidays, like Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day, which has become kind of a bastardized version of the U.S. here. But certain holidays have a feeling to them that you don't get with other holidays, where no matter what shitty mood you're in, you kind of eventually get sucked into it, and it does just kind of give you that that fantastical otherworldly feeling, or just some kind of theme that helps lighten the mood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and there's two different ways that you could look at it. I mean, escapism is sort of, can I say this? There's like a positive and a negative. One is a desire to pull towards something, and one is a desire to push away from something.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, I like this, I want to go towards it. I don't like that, I want to move away from it. And so escapism is kind of like I want to move away from it. Yeah. But then there could also be, it may be at the same time. Sometimes they coexist. Sometimes it's one, not the other. But there could also be something that draws her towards, you know, this desire to explore this other world, be a part of it. Does that speak anything to you? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think I'm definitely more of the latter. So it's more about I have this feeling of longing or desire to like lift the veil and, you know, see something else, as opposed to trying to escape from anything. Mm-hmm.
So like discovery.
Yeah, for sure.
What am I going to find?
Yeah, I think that's quite just in my personality. And as I say, when I was younger, I used to kind of really want to find magical worlds and kind of stuff beyond the realm of this plane or whatever. And now I'm older, I'm kind of a bit more skeptical about those sorts of things necessarily existing, other than in the sense of storytelling and imagination, which is still super powerful and important. But I like to adventure in the real world now. You know, I'm super into like traveling and going other places. Like I've done like solo hikes through the Andes and gone and lived in different countries and done lots of so I still kind of have that desire to go and explore and have adventures.
I was just about to say it. Knowing as an adult that it's less likely doesn't erase the desire.
No.
I miss traveling. I want to go back to Europe.
Andy sounds pretty cool. I haven't gone there. The closest I've gotten so far is Central America. I haven't gotten to go to South America yet.
Yeah, I've been on trips to South America for the last couple of years, actually. I've gone out there for a few months at a time and done a bit of adventuring around there. I've still got lots more to do though. I've still not been to the south of South America, right, Patagonia and everything, which I really want to do, but I really want to go to Antarctica. It's kind of really high on my bucket list. So we'll do that hopefully at some point in my life as a trip together. I'll go trekking around Patagonia, go right down to Ushuaia on the very south, and then try and get a boat and go to Antarctica.
If you find any crashed UFOs, just stay away. You know,
okay.
That's the whole thing.
Was this this must be a reference to a film, right?
The Thing.
The Thing. Okay.
Oh, I thought you were going to make I thought you were making a reference to Aliens versus Predator.
Oh God, no, we don't count those ones.
Was that Antarctica?
I think it might have been. I don't know. I don't care to remember. No, if there's a show, if there's a film about aliens and horror and it happens in Antarctica, it's The Thing.
The Thing. Okay. But I've kind of told you guys a little bit about my mindset now. If I see the alien spacecrafts, I definitely am going to have to go and explore them.
I was thinking that to myself. I wasn't going to say that. Possibly off topic, but what is it about Antarctica that fascinates you?
I think, again, like it's kind of not off topic, because I think it kind of goes back to these things, is that it's still like one of the kind of least explored places. So I think it's, from a practical point of view, it's meant to be like beautiful, like, just really stunning really stunning landscapes, with regards to kind of what you'll see there, and really incredible kind of nature and animal wildlife, because they've never kind of built up fear of humans from being so isolated. But then it's also the element of just kind of feeling a bit like you're going to the final frontier and stuff, and as well just a really kind of shallow thing that is the only continent I've not been to, so then I can say I've traveled in all 7 continents.
That's not a bad bucket list achievement. You had a group of friends that you played with, it seems. Was anybody else in the group into horror or otherworldly things, or is it just you by yourself?
I think I'm thinking of one of my poor friends that was like my neighbor growing up. I was a little bit older than her, and I think I used to like have quite a dominant personality when it came to her, and so I think she wasn't particularly into it, but I think she was kind of forced to be into it. I think she spent a lot of the time hanging out with me just quite scared. I'd like, right, we're going ghost hunting, or like, and she'd be like, oh, I really don't want to, Shian. And I'm like, come on, let's go.
You don't have a choice. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, and I remember she used to often make excuses like, oh, I can't come and play with you today, I've got a really bad headache, and like, so I think
sure you do.
Yeah.
So not willingly. How about any family members?
I mean, I think all my family members are probably like quite interested in these sorts of things. And like, I think my mum would be really into like kind of, we were talking about mythology earlier, and really into kind of old Scottish stories. And my sister's quite into like kind of maybe some like kind of Wiccan ideas, and she likes tarot and that sort of stuff. And my family are all total hippies, actually, basically. All of my brother as well, he's like a total hippie, and I guess quite into quite a lot of spiritual stuff and stuff. So, but I mean, that's quite different from me, like in a way. Like I'd say all my family are kind of more spiritual minded, whereas I'm more scientific minded, certainly now as an adult. But I guess there's kind of some tie-ins about being interested in sort of stuff. Definitely none of us are very kind of conservative or anything like that.
Okay. Just trying to cover all the bases because you never know, what applies to whom. Did you have any recurring nightmares, maybe, as a child?
Yeah, I used to have a recurring nightmare for a while, and it was this like character from, I think it was from, is it the Enid Blyton books, like The Faraway Tree, which is like a nice kid story, but for some reason there was one of the characters called Moonface, and I used to have this recurring nightmare about him, but like, so he's got like a face like a moon, but in this nightmare that it would all be kind of like melting away or decaying, this kind of big moon face. And I used to have a recurring nightmare about that. And I remember my mum, to kind of get me to stop the nightmares, got me to like kind of draw a picture of him, and then we like burnt it in the fire in some kind of ceremony. So I remember doing that.
It's an interesting way of dealing with childhood phobias. I like that.
Yeah. As I say, my family are all hippies, so this is probably
What was it that scared you by the dream? Just the melting of the face, or was there something else about it that?
I can't remember all that well, but I think it was just the feeling, to be honest. I mean, I remember having lots of others. There's a few nightmares that I can remember quite clearly from when I was a kid, but none that were necessarily recurring.
Yeah, sometimes with dreams you just have that. There's not really the content. It's just dreams work that way, where it's understood that you are afraid. Doesn't matter what it is.
Was there ever a time when you were actually terrified of something as a child, like in real life? Nothing
that I can really think of. No, I don't think. Okay. I mean, well, probably like social situations more than anything spooky. I used to be. This is getting slightly older now, like going into like high school. I used to be absolutely terrified when we had to do a social dance class. So it's basically like Scottish country dancing, like Kayleys and stuff. And everyone has to do like classes of that when you're in school, and they have like boys pick girls and then girls pick boys and stuff like that, and dancing. Like, yeah, that was fucking terrifying.
Were you terrified because of like a skill thing, or did it have to do with the actual social element of, the girls picking boys and vice versa?
Oh, no, it was, I mean, this is kind of a sad story, but no, it was the social element. I was not very popular in school, so it was kind of the social stigma of knowing that if it was boys picking girls, I would never get picked, and so you'd just be like left on the side. And if it was girls picking boys, I'd be going over, and you just like any boy I'd be walking towards, you just see this look of horror on their faces. They'd be like, "Oh God, don't pick me,
Well, I'm sure you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Thank you.
So moving into the teen years then, you had mentioned paranormal activity with a flatmate. Was that when you were adult or teen?
That was adult, yeah.
Okay, so I'll move that down a bit further. So what were the scary things that impacted you when you're in your teenage years?
Let me think. It was funny. There was something I was going to say earlier when we were talking about it, and it's kind of slipped from my mind now. But yeah, like, I mean, I still loved, like watching films and stuff. I can't remember any of them being, I didn't really find them scary. Like from my teens on, I didn't really find them scary. I would just enjoy it. And I still don't. I mean, I would love now, maybe you guys, I mean, I watched quite a lot of horror films, but I'd love to find one that actually scares me. They don't now. I just enjoy them. But I remember, this is kind of an interesting story when I was a teen where I got quite scared. So when I was maybe 15, 16, I was babysitting for my friend's little brother. Her family it was an overnight babysitting. Her family were going away somewhere. And she was away as well, so she couldn't babysit either. So it was just me and this like kind of little kid in the house, and I was babysitting. And it was like, I'd put him to bed, And I was kind of just about to go to sleep myself. And this is like a little small town in the Scottish countryside. And I hear a vehicle pull into the drive. So I'm like, oh, that's strange. So I kind of peer out the window and there's this kind of van in the drive. I'm like, I wonder what they're doing here. And I think, oh, maybe they've just got lost and like they've just kind of using the drive to turn around to go back in the direction. But no, these two men get out of the kind of van, and then they go and they open the back doors of the van, and then and I'm like, what's going on? And then one of them kind of walks around to the front of the house, and I can hear them kind of at the front door. So I kind of leave my bedroom and I go out, and through the front door is through this porch, and it's like all kind of glass, so you can see through. And then next thing I know, I can see this figure has like come into the porch. So somehow they've got in. I was like, oh my God, there's someone in the house. And so I'm like, oh my God, we're being burgled. Like they've got a white van, they've opened the back door, they've opened up so they can put stuff in there, load it up with things. And they've managed to get in the house. And this family had a pet dog, and the pet dog was going absolutely mental. Like dogs will often bark when people come in, but this dog, it was like freaking out, like crazy barking. So I was like, oh my God, it's because we've got intruders. We're totally being burgled. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And this is before we all had mobile phones or anything. So I didn't have a phone or anything. The only phone in the house was the landline, which I would have had to walk right past this glass door to get to. And I was weighing up my options. I was like, I could do that, but they could come out at any moment and there's a good chance I'll be caught. And I'm thinking, I've got to protect the little kid. So I come up with this idea, right, I'll go into his bedroom, I'll wake him up, and it was only a low down window, but we were just on the ground floor. So it's like, right, I'll get him to we'll climb out the window and we'll run to the neighbours and get help. And I was literally just about to do this. I'm about to wake up this little kid. And then suddenly the door of this glass door opens and this man is standing right in the hallway. And I'm like, oh no, I'm too late. The burglars have caught me. And I'm so they're frozen, absolutely terrified. And then the guy goes, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. We're just dropping the dog off. And then he just left and didn't say anything else. And so I didn't quite know what happened. And then when the family came back the next day, the mum said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, our friends were coming around. We're going to be dog sitting for them. So we give them the spare key and they came out to drop their dog off. And I forgot to tell you, I heard they woke you up. Sorry about that. And I never even told this family that I thought we were being burgled and that I nearly chucked their kid out the window to run and get help from the neighbours.
Right.
But yeah, obviously the dog was going so mental because they brought another dog in. That's why they opened the back doors of the van, because obviously they were keeping the dog in the back of the van. And yeah. So,
in retrospect, all of it makes sense, especially the dog. Yes. Yeah, but at the time,
definitely can understand why that would have freaked you out. Also, as a babysitter, that's part of the whole thing about babysitting is that you're responsible for someone else's kid.
Yeah, that adds to the tension.
For sure, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I was quite proud of myself that I came up with this plan to go and get in, save the little kid and climb out the window and all that. Yeah, just a good job. That imagine if I'd just been a bit quicker with my thinking and I'd actually done it.
I was just thinking of that. I almost didn't get us killed.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple other.
Influences?
Lost my word. Yeah, influences. Thank you. Stuff that maybe didn't scare you, but maybe impacted you as a teen in the horror genre.
Yeah, let me think. What horror film did I like as a teen? So that was all. That was the classic era of all Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, all those sorts of things. So that's what I was watching when I was a teenager. I tried recently, because they made the TV series of Scream, and I thought, oh, maybe it will be really nice and sentimental, and I watched that. But no, I was definitely not a fan. I didn't get past the first couple of episodes.
Not quite the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard they made a TV show out of it.
On the topic of looking for things to scare you, I'm sure you and Chris can have a conversation after the interview. He's like an encyclopedia when it comes to movies.
I have a few recommendations.
Good. Well, I'm up for trying anything, but I don't know. I just feel like it's not going to scare me. I feel like you might get the odd little jump or something that makes you feel a little bit uneasy or edge, but that proper way that horror affects some people, where they get really scared. I don't know. It doesn't happen with me. And that doesn't mean I don't enjoy them. I still really love watching them, but it's like an entertaining experience rather than a uncomfortable one,
I've found these days it's like after you watch a certain amount of horror movies, especially if you watch some of the more fucked up ones, nothing really scares you anymore. It just gets deeper and deeper down the hole of, oh my god, that's really fucked up. But
Yeah.
more so these days, like a few films I've seen recently, they don't have a lot of gore or violence in them. It's really just the tone and how the film is set and things like that. That really gets me on the edge of my seat. Like one I saw was called I See You. It's about these people that break into someone's house and almost as like a challenge, they see how long they can stay in their house without them knowing that they're there. And not a lot of violence in it, just a lot of the way the scenes are set and how tense it is. It's just it actually scared me first time in a while.
That sounds good. I like the concept. Well, I'm definitely going to watch that. And this is a little coincidence as well, because on Twitter today I was actually on a thread where people were talking about that. Someone I follow on Twitter put out a request asking for horror films where people kind of break into a house with the intent of kind of doing something bad and maybe get more than they bargained for or something. So this was what they wanted that. And this is this feature film Bite, which I'm in, which has not been released yet. So that's kind of the premise of that film. So I kind of was on this Twitter thread talking about that, and they were also talking about I See You. So you're the second person to talk to me about it today.
There you go.
What was the other one that you've brought up before, Chris, about the people who get more than they bargained for?
Oh, which one? There are several.
Breaking into a house?
Yeah, there's Intruder, I think, or oh god, what is the name of it? It's the one with a woman who's agoraphobic and people break into her house and turns out that she's actually got a torture basement and they're in for it now.
That's the one I'm thinking of, yes.
Okay. Interesting.
It'll come to you.
Yeah, I think it's Intruder.
That doesn't seem like, I don't think that was the name, but we can come back to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scream, Last Summer, Urban Legend, any others?
I'm sure there would have been, but they're the kind of the big teen ones that are coming to my head. Yeah.
Do you remember what it was that you enjoyed particularly about Scream?
I feel like it was just really entertaining. And I don't know, it was so of the time as well. I think it was such a cultural thing as well. Like, everyone.
That's true.
Everyone I knew would watch it, and it was a standard thing. Like when you're in your teens, like when you're in high school, that's what we'd be doing. It'd be like sleepovers, horror film sleepovers. You'd kind of go around to friends' houses and watch horror films together. So it's kind of, I think, just all quite tied in with the kind of whole culture.
That too. I know here in the US, Scream was big not only in the theaters but as like a social thing.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you were legitimately scared? Well, I guess you mentioned the babysitting thing.
Yeah.
Anything else similar in that vein of real life scares?
Nothing I can think of just now apart from the babysitter thing. I feel like, not to tempt fate or blow my own trumpet, but I feel like I don't scare all that easily, and I kind of haven't since I was a teenager, really. So I don't scared all that often. Like, I'm scared of like heights and stuff, which is obviously a very different thing. But even with that, I like to be scared. So I'm pretty scared of heights, but I have been skydiving a few times, and I've been bungee jumping, and I do rock climbing sometimes. So these things really scare me, but I do them anyway. I like the thrill, I guess.
Possibly off topic, but did you feel like there was a defining moment in your life when those things changed, where you went from being afraid of things to going, let's do this?
No, I think it's always been since I was pretty young, to be honest. Yeah, as I can remember when I was a little kid and we used to like dare each other to kind of go up to the haunted barn and stuff. And I remember, I would actually go up there when everyone else would kind of run away. So I think I've always kind of been willing to.
Been the bold one.
Yeah.
More like an early defiance kind of thing. Like, when you're a kid, you're naturally defiant. So I can see how it would start at an early age like that. Like, no, you won't. Yes, I will.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely an element of it. I'm still like pretty stubborn as well. Like, so yeah, if someone says that I won't do something, I'm like, even if I don't really want to do it, suddenly I'm like, right, I'm going to do it then.
Yeah. This thing that you talked about with the babysitters, I'm guessing, particularly because of the way it ended, in a positive note. I'm guessing it didn't introduce any type of, existing or lasting behavioral changes. You didn't have like a phobia that came out of that.
No, I think no, nothing like that.
Okay. I think you said that after 12, you guys didn't really participate in Halloween anymore as doing the trick or treating or anything like that.
Guising.
Or that.
I always reach out to the etymology things on this. Like, I'm curious. Maybe the phrase "guising" came from disguising. Like if you do a show. I wonder.
Yeah, I think that could definitely be the case. I'm not completely sure, but that seems right.
That was my hunch too. Any reoccurring dreams as a teen?
Do you know, I have a reoccurring dream which probably started with 19. I still get of just like being chased. I think it's pretty common, and the situation, the scenario might change, but it's always the same feeling. But I find now, as an adult, it doesn't. It normally ends okay. It doesn't really. It starts off really scary, but then it normally ends quite hopeful. Like I'm getting away from this thing. I also get talking about sleep stuff. I get sleep paralysis all the time, and I've had that since I was a teenager, and I still get it like all the time. I mean, like I might get it like every few days. I'll get it. It's like totally common for me.
I don't know if it's a weird thing with my interest in the macabre, but I am almost jealous of people who've experienced sleep paralysis because I've never had it, but I've heard it is something. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
maybe I shouldn't be jealous.
Yeah,
I had it in my 20s. Yeah. You were saying?
I was saying you're not the first person to tell me that you're almost jealous. I knew someone, and they were really into like spiritually stuff, and they believed that. Sorry, my wireless listener keeps beeping. Sorry about that. Let me just give a little check and see if that helps. They believed that apparently when you're in sleep paralysis, it's easier to get onto the astral plane, and so they were jealous that I could do this. And they were like, "Oh, next time you have it, just try and access the astral plane." And I'm like, "Oh God!"
It's that simple, Just try and access the astral plane.
I'm like,
do it.
No, I'm not. I'm really too busy feeling like I'm dying and can't breathe. But
higher priorities at the moment.
Yeah, but yeah. So I've had that for a long time, and normally I don't, because obviously it can come with hallucinations and things as well. Normally I don't. Normally I'm very lucid with it, and because I get it so often, I'm just like, oh, it's this again, and I kind of will know exactly who I am and where I am, and what day of the week it is and everything. But occasionally we'll get it so that there's kind of more weird stuff going on. I went through a really stressful time. This is slightly moving away from teens, but like it's carrying on with sleep paralysis. But like when I was in my early 20s, and I had this weird thing where I had this little thing with a guy, and then he like stole my house keys, which is weird. But and I got them back, but I always had this fear that he might have made a copy. And I obviously, like, nothing ever happened. It was fine. And obviously in retrospect, I should have just got my locks changed. But I was just in my early 20s, and that's expensive to get your locks changed. And I just moved into a share flat, so I kind of didn't want to I'd literally only just moved in. So like, hey guys, everyone, like I brought some guy back and he fucking stole my keys. So now we're going to all get our locks changed. So I was kind of a bit too embarrassed to tell everyone. So I never did. But I used to get really bad sleep paralysis then. And then I would always think this guy was in the room. And even when I was awake, I almost had, I don't know what the word, when you have auditory hallucination. Yeah, so I had that, and it was weird because it was genuine, and this was when I was awake, so I was totally conscious, and I literally would hear it, and I would think I could hear breathing in the room so clearly. It was as real as a real sound, and I'd be like, oh my God, he's hiding in the room somewhere. And I would and at this would be when I'd be lying in bed at night, so I'd turn my light on and I'd go and search, and I was convinced I was going to see it because I could hear this thing, and I'd open my cupboards and look under the bed and look everywhere, and the noise would be gone. I was like, okay, I must have just imagined it. Get back to bed, turn my light off, and then I would hear it again, just this really clear, and I'd hold my own breath to make sure it wasn't just me hearing my own breath, and it'd be there clear as anything. So I'd fucking freak out, and I'd get up and I'd turn the light on again and search the whole room, and nothing. And so so that was pretty scary.
Yeah, understandable.
I can imagine. Yes,
that's a common theme with sleep paralysis too. Is it usually comes along with a presence in the room standing there. Because I guess the first place your mind goes to when you can't move is there's also something else here.
For sure. And yeah, as I say, I don't normally get that because I get sleep paralysis so regularly. But yeah, just during this one period when I was obviously kind of a bit scared and stressed about this stuff, I was having the hallucinations then. And then also not just while I was having sleep paralysis, also just in my kind of waking mind, also having auditory hallucinations. Yeah.
Moving into adult years then. So you mentioned paranormal activity. Any other movies or books or any other kind of media as an adult that really impressed on you in the horror genre?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's been loads of good ones recently. As I think, horror's having a real kind of golden age at the moment with like quite interesting stuff. Like you have over the last few years, I've loved The Witch, Hereditary, Raw, Get Out.
Oh God, Raw was so good.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's been like loads of good stuff recently. I really love, it's kind of on the edge of whether you'd call it horror or not, but I love Killing of a Sacred Deer.
I have not seen that yet, but I've really meaning to do it. It's got the whole just eerie, ethereal vibe to it, right?
Yeah, I love it, and I'm going to probably I can never pronounce his name. He's Greek, I believe. Yorgos Lanthimos, something like that. But the director, he's one of my favorite directors, so I kind of love all of his stuff. And Killing of a Sacred Deer is actually probably my favorite of his. So yeah,
Did he do Thoroughbreds, I think?
I'm not sure. The ones that I know of his, he did Dogtooth, which was in the Greek language, and then so that was kind of one of his earlier ones, and then he kind of moved into making like more kind of like Americanized ones, so using American actors and stuff. And he's got The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Favourite, which was more recent. So that's his stuff. So most of his stuff is not horror, but just kind of Killing of a Sacred Deer kind of touched on it. So I really loved that. I loved, and then going back slightly further than some of the more recent ones I mentioned, I loved It Follows. I loved Cabin in the Woods, just for its kind of twist on the genre. So yeah, I think there's been loads over the last kind of 10 years or so for sure.
I agree. I know I think I saw Cabin in the Woods with Chris and one of our mutual friends. But yeah, there's been quite a lot, I think, of much better quality, I think, is where it's really benefiting these days as opposed to what we had in, the 70s and 80s where the practical effects were not as good as they are these days.
Yeah, it's almost a second golden age. I mean, you had your golden age of horror back in the 80s with all the slashers and everything, but you're right. It's gaining a lot more popularity now, and we have much better technology.
Yeah, well, I think what you've got now, and just particularly over the last few years, is you've got a lot of ones that are quite a different take on the genre, and they're ones that are much more kind of psychological and just eerie and off kilter, and kind of things that when you have things like, as I say, some of the ones I've already mentioned, like Hereditary or The Witch, or these things that it's just the kind of the whole feel of the film,
It's interesting to hear you talking about these different feels. Because, when we talked about your interest in horror as a child, it was more about the fantasy and the exploration and, the concept that there's more out there that's unexplained. And I do hear some of that in some of the ones that you just mentioned, like Killing of a Sacred Deer. But it also seems like some of the other ones that you're talking possibly being more suspenseful than necessarily
graphic.
Fantasy.
Yeah, I would agree, but I mean, I would also put Killing of a Sacred Deer in that as well. It's very much just about the feel. I mean, it's not so much about otherworldly or anything. It's very much about the weird, off kilter, kind of eerie feel. So yeah, I would say that is the case. I guess the horror that I often like now is just about the kind of not much necessarily gore or anything like that, or much actual seeing of monsters or anything. It's just about the kind of the atmosphere it creates,
uneasiness.
Yeah, the uneasy atmosphere and kind of.
That reminds me of another one, real quick. This is actually suspenseful and a little bit of fantasy in it. If you haven't seen it, definitely check out The Ritual.
The Ritual,
it's very good.
Cool. I'm writing these down, all of these ones you're recommending to me.
Any idea why, as an adult, you're now more interested in this uneasiness as opposed to what you liked as a child?
I don't know. I mean, perhaps. So, I mean, I think, as I say, when I was younger, I really wanted to believe in other worlds, and I wanted to believe in ghosts and fairies and other dimensions and magical realms that I might be able to find my way to. And now, as an adult, I don't believe in that stuff in a literal sense. I'm actually quite practical and scientific minded. With regards to my beliefs. So I guess in that sense, I feel like maybe the way to still have that desire and access these other things, it is about feelings. And I realize that it's actually inside us, rather than, there's not some other dimension where ghosts live, but like our own consciousness is a crazy thing that can tell stories and experience these things. So perhaps that makes more of a move into me more interested in just the feelings something creates in the atmosphere.
So exploring inside instead of outside.
Perhaps.
Introspection.
It's not particularly related to any particular movie, but I'll give you a vocabulary word that I picked up a couple weeks ago that I hadn't heard before. Liminal space. Do you have any idea? Have you ever heard that before?
I haven't heard it, no.
Like as opposed to liminal space?
I don't know if it's related or not, but it's spelled similar. Limnil, or maybe IAL at the end. But it's, I guess, a word that defines or describes what's common in a lot of horror movies of this uneasy space that is often like a transitional. Like if you're at a school after hours in the middle of the night.
An article on this. It's more like unfamiliar areas, like say if you're traveling through states.
Or it's familiar areas, but at an odd time. Like, for example, the school is normally you're only there during the day, not at night. Or a gas station, if it's open during the day, but not at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like this. It's something that's normal but taken out of context, or a space that's normal but taken out of context.
Interesting. Yeah. I wonder if you could do that, have that same idea and have it with people as well, because I think that's one of the things that can be scariest. This idea that it's like, say, a person that normally but they're not themselves. And going back to nightmares, actually, I remember one nightmare I did have when I was a kid that was really scary, which was, it was just my mum, and she was acting mostly normal. Everyone else thought she was fine, but I just knew it wasn't my mum anymore. She'd been taken over like Stepford Wife style. So I guess that's just made me think of that sort of thing, this idea of something that's normal, but it's kind of different.
Yeah, I would say that would fall under liminal space.
I think that's a very common human experience of, there's another word for it in the psychology area, disassociation. So has there been anything as an adult in real life that has scared you?
So there's been a couple of experiences I have where I've been scared just by someone knocking at my door, like at an unexpected time, it's not ironic. I mean, that's just why I've written it, but this kind of the first film that I'm making under my new production company, which we're shooting next week, is kind of about that. So it's kind of inspired by that experiences. But yeah, like I remember one time I was living, my housemate was this guy, and I think he was maybe a bit of a dodgy guy and into I don't know what. So I think maybe this was something to do with him. But I remember like getting this kind of unexpected knock on the door in the early hours of the morning, and I kind of went along and like looking through the little spy hole, and somebody had their hand, like fingers up there. I could see the fingers were like covering, so you couldn't see who it was. And I remember finding that pretty, and then they kept just banging on the door, and I was kind of trying to back away and trying to not make any sound so they wouldn't know anyone was in and know I was there. So I found that quite scary. And then a few years later, I had another experience where I was home alone. So I was in the flat by myself. And again, there was a kind of unexpected knock on the door in the early hours of the morning. And I kind of went up in this flat. There was no spy hole or even chain on the door. So like, there's no way for me to look and see who's there unless I actually opened the door. So this person was like, probably like banging on the door. And so I called out like, who is it? And then they just went totally silent, nothing. So I left it a few minutes. I went to go back to bed, and then suddenly they just started banging again. And so I come back, I was like, who is it? Nothing. So I kind of start to back away. Again, this banging starts again, and I'm standing there. And then suddenly this hand came through the letterbox, and this hand started reaching for me through the letterbox.
Okay, time to go to the kitchen and get a knife.
Yeah. Right. Or just call the cops.
Yeah.
Or that.
I never found out what. Eventually, they went away after that, and so I never found out. It was probably just a drunk person that like got the door wrong.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah,
probably what it was. But I did find that quite scary. And so and I still now, like, sometimes if there's like kind of an unexpected late night knock at the door, and it might just be like a housemate getting a late night delivery or something, but I'll be a bit nervous to go and be like, oh god, what's that?
Of what, food?
Yeah,
maybe.
Like, what else would be delivered in?
Amazon.
UPS guy knocking at 3:00 in the morning.
No, it'd be a food delivery. Yeah.
I don't know. Just the way you said it made me think of like a FedEx guy coming at 3:00 in the morning. That could be a short horror skit. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. It's like the horror version of Land Shark.
Yeah. I think you mentioned. Next question was any reoccurring dreams as an adult. I think you had said there was one that comes back to you now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah, I know. I said I have a reoccurring dream where I'm being chased, but it doesn't. Yeah. It starts off scary, but I say it normally ends quite exhilarating. Like I feel like I'm managing to get away.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Have you started participating in Halloween stuff again as an adult, other than your friend that had the 2-year-old?
I mean, not. I mean, sometimes I'll go to a Halloween party, but that's, and people dress up. It's often as costume, but it's mainly more about drinking than any kind of traditional Halloween experience.
Yeah, as you move on into adulthood, that seems to be more the trend is less guising, less
more
candy,
drinking.
More drinking. Candy of the adult variety.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Have you found a horror crew, as Chris likes to call it, as an adult? Do you have a group of friends that particularly like horror, or no?
No. In fact, most of my friends are not big horror fans, and most of them have not watched any of my films. Which I don't mind, to be honest, because it can be a bit kind of cringy, a bit embarrassing when like people watching your films, especially if they're not particularly into horror. If it's not going to be their thing. So not really. But I mean, there's like obviously big online communities and stuff, and even people like you guys and with doing the films, I quite often get contacted and like we'll chat with people and stuff and online and things. Yeah.
How did you get into the acting part of it? Were you always interested in acting, or was it an interest in horror that led you towards acting, or?
No, I've always been interested in acting. So I realized I wanted to be an actress when I was a little kid. I think maybe when I was like 9 years old or something, I kind of realized that was what I wanted to do, and kind of, yeah. And so that's been the case since then. And it was never a conscious choice to pursue horror. And I don't just do horror, I do other stuff as well. So like the 2 features I was meant to be filming this year that have been postponed because of COVID. So like one of them was a rom-com and one of them was like a heist movie. So, I do other stuff as well. I happen to have done a bit of horror, and I do enjoy it. It just kind of happened that way by chance, really. I got one, and then I got one horror film, and then the guys that made Sony Flesh of Man, or Lord of Darkness, as it's called over in the States, they saw that, and then they offered me the role in that one. And so then, as soon as you've done a couple, you're more likely to get considered for others. So yeah, that kind of just happened.
Right. Mm-hmm. So looking back over your entire life, I'm going to ask this 2 different ways. One is, what's your favorite movie? And then the other question is, what movie would you say you've watched more times than any other, which may not necessarily be the same as your favorite movie?
Cool. So, if I had to pick one movie to be my favorite, I would probably say, I mean, it's not horror. Is that okay?
No, that's fine. That's the whole point.
I would probably say Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, that's a great one.
It's a great film. Nice. And it's, and obviously it's a romance, it is, and lots of people think about that. But it's also a sci-fi. People forget that. So sci-fi, nowadays, sci-fi is probably my favorite genre. And I watch a lot of sci-fi. I love reading sci-fi. I read loads of sci-fi. And so, yeah, a lot of people don't think about the sci-fi aspect of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but it is, of course,
Yeah, absolutely. It's sci-fi. It's almost existential sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely is.
Mm-hmm. So I'd maybe go for that for my favorite film. Film I've watched most. Ooh, I'm not sure. That's a tricky one. I mean, it would maybe, it would, do you know what it would probably be actually? It would probably just be like a Disney film because, if you start, but if you like, probably be Aladdin because I was obsessed with that when I was a kid. I wanted to be Princess Jasmine more than I've probably ever wanted anything in my life. And so, so I watched it loads as a kid and then I've still rewatched it a few times as an adult as well. So yeah, that's probably the film I've seen most.
Yeah, Disney film makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
The reason that I like asking that question is because it does one of two things. It either reinforces something that you've already said, or it brings in an element that hasn't been talked about yet. And in this case, Aladdin would reinforce stuff that we've already talked about in terms of, fantasy and exploring, what's out there.
For sure.
Or it also brings up something new, which is, there is that factor with the whole movie you've watched the most times. When you're a kid, you watch movies endlessly. You can watch it 5 to 25 times in a day and still not have watched it enough times.
Completely. Whereas, so if it's a new film you discover as an adult, even if you love it, you're probably only going to watch it a handful of times, really.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have experienced this. I've spoken to a few other people that have, like during this whole crazy time. And again, it might be different in the States. Here in the UK, we've been in lockdown, and so we've had like many months, where we can't really leave the house and stuff. And I find it's made me really kind of feel quite sentimental about stuff. So I've been wanting to watch because I don't normally rewatch films. To be honest, I normally feel like there's so many different things there for me to experience. Even if I love something, I'd rather experience something new. But over the last few months, I've been rewatching loads of things. Like I rewatched the whole Buffy the Vampire series, which I hadn't seen since I was like a teenager, and and then I like lots of kind of things. I rewatched all the Harry Potter films. Like I rewatched, I rewatched, just like loads of films like from my younger years and stuff. I've been feeling like the desire to watch again.
Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I can't say I have done that though. There's a lot of things I should rewatch.
So looking back on the kinds of horror that you like, do you see any common threads like cannibalism, occult, metaphysical?
I would say the common thread is kind of about the idea, I think mainly about the idea of psychological and just something that's like kind of, I guess, exploring, I don't know, like kind of minds thinking in different ways or, and again, I think this ties into something I mentioned briefly when we were talking about liminal space. And I was like, I don't know, I think the thing that I actually find scariest in horror is, so I guess it's maybe going like more into possession, but not necessarily like straight up possession, but like this idea of like a person becoming something else. And but like still looking the same, but like, so possession or someone's kind of losing their mind a little bit and kind of not quite losing their grasp on reality, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Imposter syndrome.
Well, for me, what I think the term imposter syndrome means, it's when people feel that they're when they have some success, but they feel like they're an intruder and like they're actually just faking it. That's what I think when I think of imposter syndrome.
Right. So there's that one. What I meant by imposter syndrome is like, for example, you mentioned the dream that you had about your mother where you was like, this is my mother, but it's not my mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe imposter isn't the right word, but I thought it was imposter syndrome.
Doppelganger?
That is a word, but it wasn't the one I was thinking of. But yeah, there's that, as well as I think what Shian was just mentioning, or was also, like she said, becoming something else, where you start off as being who you are and gradually changing as well. And as far as why it is that you like those things, I think we kind of already touched on a lot of that in terms of, in the earlier years, it was more exploratory and, the looking at kind of like pulling back the veil, there being something more to the world than what we see. Mm-hmm. And it also potentially changing as an adult and now being interested in these other things. The last question would be why horror? Because there are other genres that maybe could expose some of these same emotions and same reactions. And I think you actually did touch on the fact that you also like sci-fi. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you might have sort of like a twin relationship between horror and sci-fi in those areas for the same reasons, maybe.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I like. I mean, one of the reasons that I really love sci-fi, and I don't know if this would tie with horror or not, but I like the way it can kind of, in a kind of in entertaining narrative form, it will often explore interesting concepts about the nature of existence. So it might look at consciousness or what it is to be human, or time and how we experience time, and kind of stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons that I really love sci-fi, I think. So I'm not sure if that ties in with horror. Yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly why I enjoy horror. I mean, I think what it is, I think I like as a person, I like to be kind of pushed out of my comfort zone, and I quite like to be uncomfortable. And this is, earlier on I mentioned that I like, I'm pretty scared of heights, but I like going skydiving and bungee jumping and stuff like this. And I will get really scared, I will be absolutely terrified, and it's kind of almost an unpleasant experience, but there's something about it that I also am drawn to. So I think that's also the same reason I kind of like horror. Even though they don't scare me that much, I want to watch something that is kind of pushing my boundaries. And even when I watch films that are not within the horror genre, I do much prefer the dark stuff. I like if I'm watching a drama, I want one that's going to make me cry. If I'm watching a thriller, I want something that's going to make me feel on edge. And so I kind of generally and like those kind of things that make me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like a safe discomfort.
I mean. Yeah, exactly, a safe discomfort. Mm-hmm.
The word I was thinking of was growth.
Mm-hmm.
Like a tumor. Well, that too. Like you say, about pushing boundaries. You did mention that even since childhood, you have, for lack of a better way to say it, a bit of a strong personality in terms of not being afraid and wanting to push those boundaries, and, for lack of a better word, grow in all these different areas of your life since childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that being a partial common thread, or one of the other common threads in along with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, seems like in your case there's a couple different things going on, and as we said, it also seems like there's been at least a little bit of a change from childhood to adulthood, which there's nothing wrong. People do change as they grow older.
Yeah, of course.
Some people stay the same, but some people change. That's perfectly natural.
Mm-hmm.
You are a complicated yet not boring individual, Shian.
Perfect, great. Do I get that written on a certificate at the end of this or something?
Yes.
You can if you'd like. Send it to you in an email.
Perfect.
So yeah, I think that pretty much brings us to the end. Before we wrap up the closing of the call, did you want to go over again anything that you wanted to pitch that you're working on?
Like the Affecting Films?
Yeah, so this is Affecting Films, my new production company. So it's brand new. I actually literally just got my certificate through in the post yesterday, making the company official.
Nice.
So yeah, still in the very early stages, but I'm planning to make 3 shorts over the next year. So this first one, which we're shooting next week, called Knock Knock, which is a horror film about this woman that receives an unexpected late night knock at her door.
Okay, yeah, drawing from real life.
Exactly, yeah. And then after that, I'm going to be shooting one called, kind of working title anyway, Isolation, which is not to do with COVID. It was written before that, which is about this kind of woman on her kind of daily commute to work that suddenly discovers the city of London is deserted and everyone's vanished. And then, it's kind of a bit of a twist that happens with that. And then the third one is kind of sci-fi horror kind of alien invasion type thing. So again, they've all kind of got their kind of darker side, their kind of horror edge to them.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like the sound of all 3 of these.
Thank you.
So again, thank you for being our guest, and thank everybody out there who's listening. We'll put together a bio and put it on the Horror Makes Us Happy page, and link to whatever it is that you'd like to link to. So anybody who wants to come check that out, they can check that out. we've got other stuff on there as well. A list of people that we've already interviewed, people that we want to interview, merch, all kinds of stuff. T-shirts, stickers. Also, if there's anybody on the list that you can help us reach out to, that'd be great. Or if you want to suggest somebody who could be added to the list, let us know. Become Patreon supporter, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just come check us out. Let us know how we're doing. HorrorMakesUsHappy.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Same. Didn't even make you sing.
No, you didn't.
Oh, yeah, we forgot the singing.